Don't forget to record.
Yeah. Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is Kelly the Coach, and I have Kevin King with me, and we are going to be doing a session on the theory of scheduling. And I use the word theory because the concept of labor inventory, I think, is the most important aspect of running an automotive repair shop. We have several people on the line, and we track the numbers, and I see the improvements that people make in selling labor. We are a labor factory. There's a gentleman in the U.S., his name's Vin Waterhouse, the trainer with Napa, and he has a workshop called the Labor Factory. And I know the word factory is probably not a great part of the title, but the idea is that every day we buy and sell labor. And the better that we understand buying and selling labor, the better the shop will perform. And my experience is once you really figure out how to sell labor, everything else falls in place. And I'm not trying to make that sound simple or oversimplistic. But the concept is the more that you focus on labor, the better the shop will run. And I know some people online are going to have heard these analogies before, but there's some people hearing this for the first time. And so I want to look at the big picture first, and then we'll get into the theory of scheduling. The concept here is this. If at 8 o'clock in the morning at your shop, there was a drop-off of parts you had ordered, and let's make it 8 spark plugs. And you saw the spark plugs, they arrived at your shop, dropped off on your counter at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you counted them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, we've got 8 spark plugs. And that day you got busy and you did all the things that you do, and you know that of those 8 spark plugs, 4 were installed in a customer's vehicle. But at the end of the day, the other 4 that you saw there in the morning are gone. They're just gone. You never do find them. So 4 got installed in a car, the other, they evaporated. Oh, well, we'll try to do better tomorrow. And at 8 o'clock the next morning, somebody drops off at your shop 8 tires that you ordered, and they're there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you go, yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that day you get busy doing everything you do, and 4 tires are installed in a customer's vehicle. And at the end of the day, you're looking for the other 4 that you saw there in the morning, and they're just gone. And the question is, how long would it take the average owner to freak out to find out where these plugs or tires are going? It would be day one. Where did they go? Now, we wouldn't tolerate that with something that's tangible, but it does happen with labor. Labor is something that shows up at our shop in the morning. We buy time from people. We give them money, they give us their time. If we stop paying them, they'll stop coming. If they stop coming, we will not pay them. We buy their time, we mark that up, which becomes a labor rate, so we can track the labor gross profit. Every day you buy parts, you mark them up for desired gross profit and sell them, and every single day you buy labor and you mark that up. The better you are at selling the labor, the better you will be at selling absolutely everything else. Today I talked to a gentleman that I've not talked to in quite a few years. He has a repair shop in Ontario, and I recall him coming to our session, and we're going back probably 10 years. And the reason I like to use stories that are even 10 to 15, 20 years old is to prove that it's still working this many years later. And Jim is his name, and he was 3rd generation, so he took over from his dad, who took over from his dad. And we were talking about KPIs, key performance indicators, and what numbers should look like. And, you know, basically, where are you? Calculating that. Where should you be? Benchmarks. And then the training was how to get from where you're at to where you need to be. And one of the things we talked about was what we call labor to parts ratio, that your labor sales should exceed your parts sales. And Jim kind of bought into a lot of things. He became the king of pre-booking appointments. I talked to him today, and I don't exaggerate things. I recall him sending me an email to read when I was speaking at Las Vegas Cars years ago. And I read an email from him that in November, I think it was November 2nd, he already had 44 pre-booked appointments for February. And that was important to him because he had always hated February, couldn't stand February. He said his dad hated February, his dad's dad hated February. And my mentor, Bob O'Connor, who I like to refer to a lot, now I don't really have the intestinal fortitude that Bob had, but I know if Jim said, you know, my dad's dad hated February and my dad hated February and I hate February, Bob O'Connor would say, so you've known this for 3 generations and you haven't done anything about it. But he constantly hated February. And I'm not saying February is a great month. It can be, but a lot of people experience a really poor February. And so that was his experience. Excuse me. So he thought, well, I think Kelly's a little bit out to lunch. He was in a management group and he sent an email out saying that he really appreciated the training, and he became the king of pre-booking appointments and tire storage and all sorts of neat things that he was adapting. I would say of all the people that were in the management groups that I was running across Canada, that he was the best implementer of anybody. In June, he sent an email to the group saying, well, we don't meet over the summer. We should keep in touch, everybody. It's been a really great year. I've come a long way. He said, however, one thing that I think Kelly is out to lunch on, and I'm not sure he thought I was getting a copy of the email. I think he thought he was just sending it to the group. But he said, I think Kelly's a little out to lunch on this labor to parts ratio, because I've gone back through my financial statements. I went back through my dad's and my grandfather's, and not one month ever, not one single month, that our labor sales exceed our part sales. Then in September of that year, and I'm thinking we're probably going back 10, 12 years ago now, he sent out an email and said, wow, I just noticed that my labor sales for the first time ever in our company's history, labor sales exceeded part sales. Well, again, I just talked to Jim earlier today, and I said, I bet you've not had one single month since with the part sales exceeding the labor sales, and he said, correct. And I want to make it very clear why that is. I like to start with big picture first. Every day you sell parts, you sell labor every single day. The question is, which is more profitable? Labor should be about 75% gross profit, 70 to 75, and parts should be about 50%. So there's no question that labor should be, it's not always, but labor should be the most profitable thing that we sell. Secondly, the question is, how often do you sell parts without labor? How often do people buy a part over your counter? They come in and buy a water pump or a hose or starter, alternator, PCM, BCM. I mean, rarely. Now, we've got one member that sells parts over the internet and online. That's different, and sometimes at his shop. But he's a repair shop, and he just happens to sell some parts as well. But that's the exception to the rule. Most people do not sell parts over the counter. Maybe you're going to get, a World Pack part that your friend customer wanted and you ordered in specially, but hardly ever do we sell parts over the counter without labor. The question is how often you sell labor without parts, and that's something that happens pretty much every single day, and if not every day, every single week. A person comes in, they say, I'm looking at buying this vehicle. Could you inspect it? You inspect the vehicle. They don't own it. They're just bringing it to you thinking they may own it. And you basically condemn the vehicle with the results of the inspection. It's a piece of crap and they shouldn't buy it. They pay you for the inspection and they didn't buy any parts. A person comes in, they think they need a brake inspection because they didn't stop as quickly as they thought, or it's got a noise, or they bought the car and they want to know the condition of the brakes. There's lots of reasons why a person thinks they need brakes. We do the inspection and we don't sell any parts because their brakes are fine and there's just a squeal or something like that. I had one person say, but we did it clean and adjust on the rears. Well, I agree. I mean, I think we should add value and put that on the invoice that we charge for the brake inspection, and we did a clean and adjust on the rears. But again, you still didn't sell any parts. So a lot of times an inspection will be done that doesn't turn into a job, or sometimes the diagnostics is 3 hours and the solution's a butt connector. So there are times pretty much every day, if not every day, weekly, that we sell labor without parts, and hardly ever do we sell parts without labor. So how is it possible that you can see more money from parts? And I don't exaggerate things. When I ran the management groups across Canada, literally from Vancouver Island, literally to Newfoundland, people would bring their numbers. 100% of the people, I'd see their numbers, their part sales exceeded their labor sales. If you showed me your financial statements, I knew nothing about your shop, you show me your financial statements, the very first thing I'm going to look at is labor and part sales. Most people at least break down labor and parts. Now, part of the problem could be under parts, you might have tires, which shouldn't be, that should be separated out. And there's a whole bunch of things like shop supplies sometimes that people have under parts that shouldn't be there. But even with those things taken out, I can assure you that in that case, 100% of the people that we saw the numbers for the very first time saw more money from parts and labor. So how is it possible that you can see more money from something you sell less of, parts, because you don't do it in every single job? Diagnostics doesn't always turn into parts. How is it possible that labor should be the most profitable thing we have, and we sell more of it, and yet make less money? The problem comes down to labor inventory and not selling enough labor. And again, every single day you buy labor, you mark it up, which becomes a labor rate. So I want to really quickly look at labor inventory. It's the most important thing. I've had many shop owners that say, Kelly, when you taught me how to figure out how to make sure I'm selling the labor, that we don't have a labor leak anymore, then everything else sells along with it. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it. And over the years, I've had people say, Kelly, you make it sound simple. Well, it is simple, but it's not easy. Simple and easy are not the same thing. When you watch a football game, football is not complicated. I used to never understand the game, but I didn't know what a down was, and I learned when my son played. But I'd go to a football game, and I'm not stupid. You see a touchdown, you know what that is, and field goal, you get points. But when people would play for 3 seconds and everybody would cheer, I think nothing really happened. But people say they got their down. But I've learned about football is that yes, it can be complicated. There's many different teams, and there's the offense and defense. And they got all these coaches and all these plays. But football in and of itself is simple. Get this ball over that line and stop those people from getting the ball over yours. That's really all football is. It's simple, but it's not easy. The concept of labor inventory is simple. You buy labor, you sell labor. But the average manager, just for the record, is interrupted 232 times a day. So if all you had to think about was labor, you'd do well at it. But you've got parts and you've got customers and you've got employees and you've got all these hats that you're wearing and you're interrupted all day long. You can't focus on anything. Sometimes you feel like, your head's spinning. Or I wrote an article years ago called Pinball Wizard. Some people that they run their shop like a pinball wizard. Anyway, the idea is to focus on labor inventory, and I want to show you the importance of it. We're going to compare 3 shop owners, Dustin, Kendra, and Scott. All 3 are in the same city. All 3 have the exact same labor rate. And the reason I say that is because as a trainer who's been all across Canada, and I've literally been to all 50 states, many, many times, hundreds, if not thousands of times, I hear people say, but it's different here, it's different here, it's different here. Well, you don't understand York, Pennsylvania. I mean, if you've been to York before, it's different here. I was on Vancouver Island one time, and this guy said, yeah, I know that, I know your stuff here, but it doesn't really work on the island. And I said, really? Why? He said, well, I've been in Nanaimo my whole life, and I know it's different. Well, if you've been there and not other places, how do you know it's different? But he told me, he said, we have price-conscious people here. And I said, really, that's where they all went. We were kind of wondering where all those price-conscious people went. It doesn't matter if you're in Chesapeake, Virginia, or you're in Halifax, or you're in Toronto, or York, Pennsylvania. Cars are cars, and people are people. Now, there's differences with cold weather and tire storage. There's difference with super cold weather and the sales of alternators, batteries, and starters. But cars are cars, and people are people. And it doesn't matter where your shop is located. You need to make sure that you're selling the labor inventory, and your area is not going to be that different. But for the purpose of the argument, Dustin, Kendra, and Scott all are in the same city, so they have all the same weather.
Kelly, I think we lost you. Kelly?
Can everybody hear me?
Now you're back. Yep. So you were saying Dustin, Kendra, and Scott are all in the same city.
Okay, great. So yeah, my audio just showed that there's something wrong with the connection. So they're all in the same city. They all have the same labor rate. Here's the difference. The average shop, and we're going to just do this quickly as a month. The average shop has a technician who's there 168 hours in a month. 8 hours a day, 40 hours in a week, sometimes 44, but let's just go with the average number of hours worked. And let's say that all 3 shops in this case have 3 technicians. So that means 504 hours of inventory. And I know often we don't refer to or think about hours as inventory, but it is an inventory. You buy 8 hours in a day. Well, what happened to the hours that you didn't sell? Again, if it was 8 spark plugs and you sold 4, you'd wonder where the other 4 went. Well, if your technicians are there for 8 hours each, they were there. They were physically there. They came in at 8 o'clock in the morning and they left at the end of the day and they only took off lunch. Well, what happened? Something happened. We didn't sell all the inventory. Again, if it was spark plugs, we'd freak out, and yet we buy 8 hours worth of inventory a day. And for those of you that are flat rate, this doesn't change. It doesn't matter. They were there 8 hours a day. Whether you paid them flat rate or not, You didn't maybe pay for all 8 hours, but they were still there for the 8 hours. So 504 hours is an average month for a shop with 3 technicians. Productivity is defined as how much time of the day a technician spends working on income-producing work. Your technicians in an average shop only spend 60% of the day working on income-producing work. And I can tell you without exaggerating, again, I've had a chance to see the financial statements for thousands of repair shops. And I can tell you that the average independent repair shop, and I know everybody online right now live is in our management group. So you're not an average shop. You're taking training, you're making changes. It's good to see that. So you're definitely not going to be in the category of 60%. But a lot of shops are only selling 45 to 55% of their inventory. I've seen shops that could do as much in sales with half as many people. There's a member in the group right now that's on the line, and I was looking at the financials for earlier in the year prior to being in the group, and they were selling almost half of the inventory of labor. So to buy 504 spark plugs and only sell half of them, you'd be freaking out. But the average shop will have a technician there for 504 hours and literally not be selling any, or literally only selling half. So the average shop productivity is simply how much time is spent working on income producing work. Efficiency is how fast the technician is, the ability to beat the time. So the book calls for an hour, takes them an hour, that's 100%. So that shop produced 302 hours. Well, 302 hours is not very good considering you had 504 hours of labor inventory. And I want to encourage you to think of your technician's time as labor inventory. It's there, and how well do we do at selling it? In this particular shop, their labor rate's $101 an hour. They only sold 302 hours. So their labor potential was $30,542 at the labor rate of 101. Along with that, they would sell parts and sublet and tires and towing and shop supplies and environmental fees. When we add it all together, that shop should do about $61,000. But looking at the labor inventory at Kendra's shop, she has 504 hours, 3 techs, 8 hours a day, 21 working days in a year on average. She has just as much inventory as Dustin, but she's a better manager. She keeps her technicians productive. Productivity is primarily service advisors and managers and owners' responsibility. Your job to book enough work, to schedule enough work. And I can tell you that when you control your schedule, instead of your schedule controlling you, things change drastically. If you're a shop that doesn't do much marketing, you don't do much advertising, we've got Phil online here. Phil sends out mail every single week. Now, email's okay, but I can assure you that what Phil's doing, sending out actual mail, is far more productive. I don't remember getting, in the last year, how many pieces of mail I've received. I mean, how many emails do you get anymore? It's just completely insane. So you get so much email, you don't have time to deal with it. But when something comes in your mailbox, it's tangible. You actually see it. So I commend you, Phil, for doing that. And we do recommend that with your customers, yes, you use email for different things, but there's nothing better from a response perspective than sending out actual mail. You need to control the schedule. If you don't market, if you don't advertise, if you don't pre-book appointments, if you don't manage the inventory, you're at the whim of the customer. And if it gets cold, you get busy. And if it gets hot in the summer and people need AC, and I understand the correlation with cold weather and selling alternators, batteries, and starters. I understand hot weather and selling more AC stuff. I get that. But if we're waiting for the weather to change to get busy as a repair shop, something's wrong. We're not a farmer, we're a repair shop. But when you control it, instead of waiting for the phone to ring like the Maytag repairman, and you're waiting for somebody's car to break down, but when you schedule in advance, when you pre-book appointments, you're pre-booking maintenance. So I just want to quickly look at the theory of selling labor inventory, and then I'm going to move right into the theory, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin for just a little bit, and then we'll spend about 15 minutes maximum talking about pre-booking appointments. So productivity at Kendra's shop, I would say she's much better at scheduling work in advance. They're not at the whim of the customer. They're selling more maintenance. When you're pre-booking appointments for your customers, you're selling maintenance, not repair. It's like the dentist office. A dentist office doesn't pre-book repair, they pre-book maintenance. And I was at my dentist's office this week, actually, and she's trying to book an appointment, and the schedule was like just jam-packed full of things. Now, if you opened up a dentist's office tomorrow, things wouldn't be like that. There's no pre-booked appointments. But after you've been at it for a while, she was looking for a day that I could see the dentist and see the appointment, and she was looking into next year. That's how much of a science they've got it down to. But it's the maintenance that's pre-booked. It's the hygienist that pre-books, not the doctor. The dentist is the person who does the emergency stuff, who does the extractions, who does the diagnosis. The dentist is the diagnostician, and the maintenance people are the ones that do the maintenance. So the dentist isn't going to say to you, we phone the psychic hotlines and you're going to need to come in and see us in May because your tooth is going to break in June or whatever. That's not the way it works. Maintenance can be booked 3 months in advance, 6 months in advance, a year in advance, because they're teeth and they get mileage on them and they need to be maintained. It's the exact same thing with a repair shop. The more maintenance that we sell, the more appointments we can book in advance. So Kendra's obviously got that figured out. Their efficiency is higher. Why? Lots of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why productivity will be higher in efficiency. Mainly with efficiency, it's the kind of work we're doing. At Dustin's shop, they do a lot of grunt work, and at Kendra's shop, they're getting better and better and better at selling maintenance. Maintenance is where the money is in the dentist industry. Maintenance is where the money is for us. Now, Kendra, in this case, produced 423 hours. Now, it's certainly not the full 504, but she's certainly doing better than the guy down the street, only selling 302 hours of the 504. At the exact same labor rate, they do $42,000 in labor, because it's really $101 an hour, and we sold more hours. We had the same hours available, but we sold more labor. And when you sell more labor, your productivity is higher and your efficiency is higher. You can handle a higher car count. The technician's done the job earlier and they can get another car in. And the trend is really simple. I've seen it for years. The labor sales go up, everything else goes along with that, because the better you are at selling labor, the better you are going to be at selling everything else that you sell. And so the shop is doing 85,000. In the case of Scott, 504 hours, again, 8 hours a day, 3 technicians, 168 hours each in a month. They have the same number of inventory hours as Dustin and Kendra, sorry, but they're more productive. They spend 90% of the day working on income-producing work. Just for the record, very quickly, 90% is our goal. 100% is the maximum, because productivity is how much time is spent of the time available working on cars. So if I'm working for you at West Service Center, and I've been there for 8 hours, and Beth says, hey, Kelly, how many hours did you actually spend working on trucks today? 9. No, 10 today. That's virtually impossible. What I mean is maybe I sold 9 hours or 10 hours, but it's physically impossible to be at West Service Center or any other shop for 8 hours and spend more than 8 hours actually working on stuff that makes money. And 90% is our goal. 100% would be ridiculous. We'd spend every minute of every single day working on cars, no wasted time whatsoever, no texting, no bathroom breaks. We'd have to have non-smoking technicians and install catheters. 10% wasted time in the day is fine, waiting for work, waiting for the advisor, waiting for parts, whatever. But that's a shop that is doing really well. They are managing their shop better. They're managing the labor inventory, and they spend 90% of the day working on stuff that makes money. Efficiency, 125%. They're far more efficient. Why? More maintenance, more pre-booked appointments. There's a lot of practical reasons why one shop will be more productive than the other, and one shop will be more efficient than the other. But the biggest difference I've seen is the amount of maintenance that you sell. If you do grunt work, it's hard to get the efficiency there. If you fill up their day with grunt work, tire work, and oil changes and those lower gross profit items, it's hard to be efficient. But if you're selling 30, 60, 90,000 K services, or in Canada, 96,000 K services, 30, 60, 90s, you're selling more maintenance. The technician's going to be able to beat the time. They are doing a maintenance on a vehicle that the book may call 4 hours, but we've done it so many times it takes us 2.5. And we have to charge for the 4, because we shouldn't make less because we're better. I mean, really, if you're slow, then you would make more money because you spent more time on it. But as you get better and you go to training, your techs go to training, and you buy equipment and you buy resources and you get the job done faster, you paid to be able to get the job done faster. And if you didn't charge that way, that would mean the better you got, the less you would make. Your tech goes off to training, they learn a new way of doing it. They were gone for a day, you missed the inventory for a day with them gone, you paid for the training, they went, they learned something, and you came back and you say, wow, I learned this, I can get this done faster, and you made less money. You buy a piece of equipment, helps you get the job done faster, and you make less money. So that means as you get better and better and better, and buy more tools and equipment, the less money you make. That's not the way this is supposed to work. And yet some people, if it takes less, they charge less, but you need to realize what it costs you to get it done faster. And at Scott's shop, they sold 567 hours. They actually sold more hours than they had available. The beauty about labor inventory, the difference between parts inventory, if you bought 504 tires, the maximum you could sell is 504. You can't sell 567 tires if you only had 504 in inventory. But because labor is not a tangible, we can sell more hours than we had available. At the exact same labor rate, the labor potential was $57,000. And again, the more cars you work on, the faster you're at, the higher the productivity, the higher efficiency, and this shop did $114,000. So I wanted to look at the big picture. Take a look at the difference between $61,000 in a month and $114,000 in a month with the exact same number of technicians, with the exact same number of hours available, with the exact same labor rate. What was the difference? There's only two differences. They were more productive, they spent more time working on cars, and they were more efficient, faster at it. I've had people look at that and say, well, that's, sounds good, but, it's easier said than done. I don't know where that expression came from. Easier said than done. Everything in life is easier said than done. What is actually easier to do than say? I could say I could walk out to my car and get in my car and start it. Well, it takes longer to do it than to say it. Everything is easier said than done. What we're talking about here is the difference between simple and easy. So now I want to take a look at the theory, and I want to specify very clear theory, the ability to sell the labor inventory. If you have 3 technicians in a day, and they're available 8 hours in a day, you've got 24 hours worth of inventory. The very important thing, and I put it in red up here, is your labor inventory is hours, not vehicles. You don't count how many cars are coming in. Some people think, oh, I look at the schedule, every line's used, we're doing great, we've got lots of cars coming in today. How long does it take to fix 10 trucks? How long does it take to fix 10 vehicles? Is it 10 oil changes, 10 valve jobs, or something in between? So you don't count vehicles, you count hours. You don't buy and sell vehicles. If you're a used car lot, yes, that's your inventory. You bought 10 cars, you sold 3, you need 3 more. You've only got 7 left. But the inventory for us is labor. So the problem I find is a lot of people, if they've got 24 hours in advance, for the day, they want to sell that. And it seems to make sense that if I've got 24 hours of available inventory before tomorrow starts, I would like to see that I have all 24 hours sold in advance. Well, the problem is, and you all do this every single day, how often does a customer walk into your shop and want more work done than they had an appointment for? How often do they come in and say, by the way, well, it's here, could you also? I know I'm only here for an oil change, but while I'm here, could you find out why my car is pulling to the right? It's starting to make this funny noise. Could you find out what it's doing? Or they say, while you're in there, could you also do this? Now, I've asked that question to tens of thousands of shops, and the answer, the most common answer, is 50%. Half of my customers are coming in and want more work done than they had an appointment for. Well, now we have a problem already, and the day has just started with the very first person who wants more work done. And then we have people calling to see if they can get in today or just stopping in. So the problem is, if you start, and we're looking at the theory. It's not about all the detail here. Some people use a paper schedule. Some people use Gemcar. Some people use other software. Some people use calendars to do this. So it doesn't matter how your system works. I want to explain the theory. And for the purpose of this, let's say that we sold all the hours in advance. So now we're clearly at 0 hours left. The problem is we have no wiggle room. We have no nothing to work with. We've got nothing else we can do. A customer comes in, wants more work done, then excuse me, they want more work done, then we can't do it. Somebody calls in and we can't take them in. So the concept here we recommend is that you start the day with 19 hours. And 19 hours is leaving you 5 hours of reserve time, 20%. Now, you need to work with it. Now, I know some people that are so afraid they're going to run out of work. Well, no, I can't do that. I want to sell it all. Some people are completely oversold. One quick story, I had a fellow named Brett years and years ago came to the class, and he said, we take it in, we take it in, we take it in. We never say no. We're really greedy. We take it in. I said, but look, go back to page 3. In your labor inventory, you calculated your potential, and you're only doing about half. So if you're taking in everything you possibly can, well, then how come you're not selling all the labor inventory? And in the days we use the appointment schedule at West Service Center, you've got the exact same one on your counter. I know some people use it, some people don't. Back in the day, it was awesome. Now I think it should be electronic, but he had the exact same form. And I saw him a month later, and he came right up to me and said, my God, I'm so glad I took your class. He said, things are so much better. He said, I took the appointment schedule that I got at the class. I went back to my shop, even though it was Saturday night. And he said, I wrote down, okay, we got this car in here. This is what it's in here for. How long should that take? This car is in here. How long should that take? And he said, I wrote down everything that was already on the lot, and we were negative 57 hours. I mean, Monday morning hadn't even started yet, and they've got 57 hours of work already there. And he said, I would have taken in appointments Monday morning. Yeah, we're going to get caught up. We're going to get caught up. And he was frustrated because he'd look at his lot in the morning full of cars, and at the end of the day, full of cars. They couldn't even park all the cars in the lot. They had to get them other places. I won't get into the detail of that. But he did something that took a lot of guts. He said, I went back to the shop. I didn't take in one more car. And when people phoned starting Monday morning, he said, we're completely full this week. Is that a problem? Is there anything wrong with saying we're full? We've got more cars than we could possibly handle. Too often, in reality, and there's no other way of wording it, we lie to them. We say, yes, we have something that you need, but we don't have it. Our inventory is oversold. And he said, Kelly, we didn't take in one vehicle all week. And he said, we got that 57 hours finally caught up and all the little extras that they found, because part of that 57 hours was some diagnostics and that would turn into other work as well. So our recommendation, not that you don't take in a car all of next week. Now, I know some shops that would, if they didn't take in an appointment all of next week, would still have enough week to last, or work, I should say, to last for the whole week. So our recommendation is this. Let's say Kevin's coming in and he has an appointment and it's a half hour, okay? So all we need to do is that's an estimated. And what's really key here is that we indicate how much time should be spent on it. And I just need to redo this. We need to indicate under the estimated in our mind or on our schedule, whatever it is that you're doing, we need to be able to determine how long the initial work is going to be. So if it's an inspection, we need to be able to, and I put 0.5, it should be 0.5 there, sorry. So what we're saying here is that this is going to be an oil change. And again, I'm not looking at the detail, the customer's name, the vehicle, all the work that's going to get done. Again, this is theory. So we know it's an oil change. But what happens when we do the oil change? It's an LOF, and an LOF is a labor opportunity of the future, which is going to turn into more work. When we inspect the vehicle, and we need to inspect every single vehicle when it comes into the shop. Now, if it was there 2 days ago and it's coming back for something else, then maybe not. But every oil change should turn into more work, because just for the record, for every $1 in maintenance and repairs that your shop finds, $7 in needed repairs leaves. So if we took the time to inspect the vehicle each time and try to sell the work to the customer that day, which most people want, not everybody, but I don't want to get my car at the end of the day and Kevin say, by the way, you also need this. Well, why didn't you call me? I mean, my car's been here all day and now I'm going to have to come back. So to get the inspections done in the morning, the diagnostics done in the morning, prepare the estimates from the technician's work back to you, documentation. So we call Kevin and say, by the way, Kevin, you need to have this done. And let's say it's now going to be 3 hours of work. So we can see that it's going to be, we've got room to work, because we still have 16 hours. And now this is an LOF, and again, I'm just doing this really quickly to show you the concept of this. The brake inspection, let's put that in as 0.5 as well. We've got a tire swap, let's make that 0.5, a day of small jobs. Let's make this for the simple purpose of this. So I need to do it in this column. Brake inspection, again, is negative 0.5. And the tire swap, again, we'll do negative 0.5. Replace the alternator, let's just make that negative 2 hours. Diagnose the fluid leak, let's say we sold the customer 1 hour of diagnostics time there. And we're going to replace the brakes. Now what happened was we did this brake inspection. The car's on the lift. The wheels are off. We're going to do the brake inspection. Yeah, we could do that for you today because we anticipated that some brake inspections would turn into jobs. And let's say that's going to be a 3-hour job. We're going to do a state inspection, which is going to be, say, only negative 0.5. So at any given time, we can see, I went over top of that, we can see how many hours are left there. The idea is to build reserve time into the schedule. We still have 3.5 hours left. Now let's say that this LOF turned into more work, and so now we've got negative 3 hours. It's a bigger job that we got out of that. So we can see exactly how many hours are left there. And the idea is when you get down to 0, you stop taking in vehicles. So Kevin, I'm just going to turn this over quickly to you. I want you to be able to talk about how this reserve time would be built into the schedule. Again, hours is the inventory, not cars. So the question is, can I look at my schedule for tomorrow and see, have I sold all the inventory tomorrow? Am I oversold for tomorrow? Or do I still have 2 hours left for tomorrow?
Excellent. So you're going to pass the presenter role, or am I going to become presenter?
I'm going to pass the presenter role, yes. I don't understand. It's not allowing me to do that. Okay, so just go ahead and talk about it, please, Kevin. I apologize. So, I tried to make this 45 minutes, and it's a brand new concept that we're teaching here today. So,
and we could also attach an additional video for anybody that was interested in seeing how we've taken it to the next level, which was exactly what Kelly was talking about. When you're dealing with hours, not vehicles, in software, it's the same thing. We're talking about hours, not people. And in addition to hours, we really want to get to the point where we're measuring minutes. So in this theory that we're talking about, going back to the theory concept, we're not saying go in tomorrow and shake down the whole shop and start everything anew, and it's all going to be a brand new experience for the whole office. The goal is that as you're monitoring your productivity and your efficiency, you can start moving the needle. And one of the ways that we do that, and I'm just going to drag the screen over here so that you can see it, is that we'll use color code. We basically, we will use color code to determine what you need for the time that's available. So based on the management of your calendar, you'll be able to put less or equal to the total minutes. So everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? If you have a 10-bay shop, you're going to have a different reserve minutes or time in the course of a day than you would if you were a 3-bay shop. Or if you have an active bay that's going to be used as, excuse me, for mobile, your capacity is going to be greater than somebody that's operating a 2-bay shop. So the idea behind this is we created an electronic version for you to be able to adapt and determine your minutes. It's not an ideal, it's not a perfect world. It never is. We realize that. So we give you the ability to manage the different flows as it goes, and you start to see what happens with your business model. So in that, it's built in, it's a simple configuration that maybe that's an advanced step. Maybe when you first begin, we just want to talk about when I'm managing my time and I want to know what labor inventory I have, I need to make it so that everybody's on the same page. So when I click on my calendar from the point of sale, I want to see my 3 bays, my 3 technicians, because we manage people, not bays. You could have a wash bay or a 10 or a 16 bay shop, but I only have 3 people, 8 hours a day to produce labor and manage that inventory. So each of these jobs, as I go through, basically in GemCar, if one of these jobs was to expand or to grow and I change the duration of the time, I could do that very easily. One, I would sell that to the customer. I would get that approved, and this job would move, let's say, from an hour or a half an hour repair. I could say, you know what, the plan time is really going to need to be 2 hours for this particular job. Maybe I'm charging him the same rate. Obviously, we don't want that, but that's the real world. But as you change the plan time on that particular job, we need to account for that in the calendar. So if a job moves from just a half hour to now it's a 2 hour job, we in real time want to be able to visualize that. So do I really have that opening of an hour here or an hour and 20 minutes? So as the calendar, we're planning our time. We're starting to manage that time. In a global view, I can see my whole day. Here's the hours that I have. As these jobs expand and contract, job ends up not showing up. The customer didn't come in. They didn't show up. I can actually remove it from the calendar, and everybody will see in real time, I now have an opening for an 8 o'clock appointment in Peters Bay, for example. So in addition to this, when we start calculating the real productivity and efficiency of the shop, and you want to become better at it and pre-book appointments, as Kelly was describing, if I click here on the calendar, I can see I have available capacity in every one of these days. So you can block out certain days. You don't work Sundays, for example. You can put those all red. You can make it so that if it's yellow, it means that you're nearing the mark for those 3 technicians that work on that day. Maybe on Fridays, I only have a 2-man crew. So I need to adjust my calendar appropriately for how many minutes of inventory I have available. But this way, if I'm looking for, I could pre-book an appointment for any one of these days, and it's green, it means I have all the capacity to be able to handle it. As I put in 2 hours or 4 hour job or a 6 hour job, all of a sudden it's gonna change color to warn me, don't take in any more work on Wednesday, start scheduling on Thursday. So that's just our adaptation as to what Kelly's teaching, which is we try to make it fluid, we try to make it simple, it's visual, it's very simple for people to say, okay, today's capacity, here's all the time that we have. As we near that, and I want to look at a global, hey, I shouldn't take in any more work because maybe these jobs are going to expand into my afternoon, as an example. I want to move it to the next day. I have a clean date. I can move over to the next day. If I want to know what's available, I can click on the calendar. By color, red, yellow, and green, I'll be able to see what I've determined as the reserve capacity that I have for those particular days. So based on the number of minutes that you want to have, because we're managing people now, not vehicles, and we're measuring minutes, not hours. So you could really dive in as kind of an advanced course to really tweak your calendar so that you're maximizing that. But I think also the power of averages, like Kelly was talking about when he talked about the power of team looking at the reporting, this doesn't happen overnight. We're not suggesting go back to, get all fired up and go in tomorrow and shake everything down. Start with a simple paper calendar. Start looking at tracking what did my day result in? What types of jobs did I do? And also determine the types of things you want to get away from, right? I mean, if we were to ask this group, nobody here would want to do gas tanks, hopefully, or brake lines. I'm in New England, right? So rust is a huge problem up here. That's the worst kinds of job. It's the hardest on the people. It's the hardest on the equipment. It takes twice as long as you anticipate because everything comes apart in pieces versus brake fluid flushes. I know that Peter can do 5 of them in the course of a day, be in and out of it. It goes back to that efficiency. He's more efficient at it because he has the brake bleeder. He's quicker at it because he does more of them. So as those changes happen, you're able to adjust and be able to get a better feel for what is my capacity for particular days. I can visually see I'm in today, tomorrow, the next day, and you can start blocking those out with color. So, Kelly, hopefully that at least addresses the minutes. Basically, we break it down to the minute because it literally went from 504 hours in the month for the week for the 3 employees, or for the month 168 per week. Now we have to break it down by the minutes. So I think that's just a quick overview of how we've adapted what Kelly's teachings are so that you can actually relate it to what it could look like. And then at the end, your performance reports display that productivity efficiency so that you're able to see how well you're doing each week, each day, and keep track of your employees to coach them.
Okay, Kevin, can you just give your contact information in case anybody has any questions specifically about how it works in your system?
Sure. Yeah. My direct line, cell 802-343-6584. I can be reached at my email, kking@gem-car.com. That's kking@gem-car.com. And toll-free number is 866-848-8282. And I am an extension 207. I am also the only Kevin on the team, so you can also just ask for Kevin.
Okay, I'm going to include that information when I send out the email. Okay.
Great.
Now, I'm
Thank
just
you, Kelly.
curious, can everybody see my screen again, or is it still Kevin's?
No, we can see yours now.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So, just so you know, I have a client that's, well, taken training for 20 some years, and he took the exact same scheduling system that we're talking about here. Now, again, I'm looking at theory, so I didn't put customer's name in the vehicle and all the detail of that. Regardless of the customer's name, the vehicle, it's all about inventory. And by the way, just for the record, one thing you do want to track is how long did that job actually take. Now, of course, your shop management software should be doing that for you. And if it doesn't, even a simple little tracking session like this, sorry, it's tracking, on paper just for the time being. But I have a client, and what he did is he took this exact same concept. And having said that, and I know in the case of one of the shops on this meeting that's using our handwritten schedule like this, my experience is this. We taught this to thousands and thousands of people for many, many years. The company I worked for, Bob O'Connor, sold these schedules and people would buy them. And I would get into shops and I would see that they would do a really good job at writing down the customer's name and which vehicle and what service they were in, but they did not use the estimated and actual columns. And the shop online, I know that you don't use estimated and actual. In fact, is you probably haven't been trained on how to use that portion of it. And I would ask people in the class, they've been to training now for 3 or 4 months, how many people are using the schedule? Lots of hands would go up. How many people are using the estimated and actual columns? Excuse me, and almost, sorry, every hand would go down. If you don't use these two columns, it's really just a fancy form. The key is this: how long do I think the job is going to actually take? And put that in there. So if my technician is not going to do this 60,000 mile service, or in Canada 96,000 case service, the book sold for 4 hours. Well, it's not going to take 4 hours. It's going to take 2. So make sure that you're factoring in how long you think it will actually take. And for the purpose of this, then you can build in the simple sheet and show the actual time so you can see how good you are at it. If you build in 5 hours of reserve time, and for the most part, cars are getting done on a daily basis, you don't have as many cars on the lot at the end of the day as you had in the beginning of the day, then your system's working. Now, we don't want you underbooking the day either. So maybe 5 hours at your shop is too much. And I made a comment here about more on Mondays and Fridays. And by the way, I'm going to be sending this to you. And because it's a working spreadsheet, I didn't want to send you this in advance because it wouldn't match up to what we're doing here. But our recommendation is that you have more reserve time on Mondays and Fridays. And again, I have a lot of experience teaching the theory of scheduling. Even if you don't use this exact system, the theory's the same. How many hours of inventory? How much reserve time do we have? We track as each appointment is made. How long do we think it'll actually take? I think you need usually about 50% reserve time on Mondays. Monday tends to be the drop-in day. People had problems on the weekend. Sometimes they just drop off the car, put the key in the night drop box with no instructions, work on my car, fix it. More people typically drop in on Mondays or call Monday morning. So our recommendation is that you have more reserve time on Mondays. And having said that, when you're pre-booking appointments for the customer's next visit, I recommend that you don't even mention Monday to them. I'm amazed how many times as a customer I've called the shop and they're so busy. They're just completely busy. Bringing in Monday, bringing in Monday. There's always this hope that Monday's going to be better. Monday next week's going to be better. Bringing in Monday. Oh my God, I'm glad they're not coming in this week. They're coming in Monday. And now we've just completely screwed up Monday and it hasn't even come yet. So when you're pre-booking appointments for customers, we recommend that you ask for a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday. Because why fill up Monday when Monday usually takes care of itself? My experience is that you need more reserve time on Fridays as well. So our recommendation is maybe you start with 20% across the board, see how that works, and you'll see on Mondays how many times Monday oversold compared to Tuesday or Wednesday. So maybe you think, well, I need 30% reserve time on Monday. Work with that for a few weeks and see how that works. My experience, again, is a lot of shops, most shops, not all, but most, need 50% reserve time on Mondays, about 30% reserve time on Fridays. Now, if you're open Saturday, that's not as big of a deal. It's Saturday in of itself is a whole different day because it tends to be the drop-in day, typically a lot of oil changes and those kinds of things. But if you're open Saturday, then it's not as important to have the reserve time on Fridays. But again, if you're afraid to start with 50, start with 20. And again, it doesn't matter what your system is, whether it's paper, electronic, whatever shop management system, this is the system that we recommend with the how long is it going to take, should it take, how many hours do I have, subtract it, and at any given time, you could look at any specific day and see how many hours are still remaining that day. So in this case, where I did a little bit of work on this while Kevin was in the background, I was in the background here, and I took that 60,000 mile service, as you saw, and I changed it to 0.2, and I changed some of the numbers up here. So now we're oversold. So if it's 8:10 in the morning and somebody calls me, instead of saying, yes, bring it in, I look down and go, oh, I'm negative 3.5 hours. We can't take it in today. So I'm going to look for a day, just like a dentist does, and I look for a day that I have the number of hours that I need for that customer's repair. So this customer that I was talking about took our scheduling system, the paper one, and turned it into an electronic standalone scheduling system that does it for today, and you can pre-book well out for a year. So I have the information. I'm going to send it to you. You can do a free trial with it. If it's something you want, you would just deal directly with his company. I like it because it's the same thing except electronic. Now, ideally, if you could do it in your shop management system, that's phenomenal. But not everybody is on a shop management system. We have some people that are still on QuickBooks. You can't do this kind of thing with QuickBooks or some other type of software like that. That's bookkeeping software, not scheduling software. So if that's something that you're interested in, I didn't want to do a commercial for it here. I'll send it out. The concept is it's the same as the printed schedule, except standalone electronic that you would run separately and maybe work with that for a while. If you want the paper one, you could work with that. And again, all we need to do, we don't need all the detail about the customer's name and the vehicle handwritten when we've already got that in our computer. But even if you just had a spreadsheet that just did this section here, estimated time, and then see how it goes. If you're running out of work, well, then you need less reserve time. If you're running out of day before the end of the work, then you need more reserve time. So just a few other things about pre-booking appointments. There's a lot of industries today that are really good at pre-booking appointments, and dentists are the best example. I think dentists have been doing it for years, but in reality, we should have thought of it before the dentist, because I'm convinced it's easier for us to pre-book an appointment than a dentist, because the dentist needs to see you physically. You are the patient. You don't drop your teeth off in the night drop box and pick them up at the end of the day. If that's the case, you're talking to a denturist, not a dentist. In our case, the customer is not the patient, the vehicle is. So if the person's going to be at work the entire day, that's okay. We don't need them. We need the car, and they could drop it off the night before. They could drop it off in the morning. If the person's sick and they're not going to come in, maybe we've got somebody that can go out and pick up the vehicle for them. I've seen shops that are really dead, and the next thing you know, somebody needs something towed in, and they'll do that to get the work in because it's better than not having any work at all. If a person's going to be on vacation for 3 days, it doesn't matter. We can have the car left at the shop, hopefully not for the full 3 days sitting there, but we don't need the customer. So the dentist needs to see the patient. In our case, it's actually easier for us because of the night drop box, dropping it off the night before or the morning of. One thing I found fascinating about our industry, and one thing that's helpful for me as a trainer, is I am a customer. I go into repair shops and I experience. And by the way, when I walk into a shop, I don't say, hey, my name's Kelly Coach, this is what I do. I go in like any other customer. Recently, I went to a Quick Lube simply to experience what it was like. And I'll tell you, the thing that I noticed very clearly is that their training is really good. They've taken a lot of training. They're really good at upselling. They're just brilliant at it. And sadly, in some cases, they're better at it than us. Now, sometimes they're selling work that doesn't need to be done, but that's the exception, not the rule. The average sticker price, I would say, for a Quick Lube is probably $50. Some say $29, $39, whatever. But the average is probably about $50, and maybe in synthetic, I think mine was $122 for the synthetic. But the average invoice in those places is well over $200 for a synthetic service and well over $100 for regular, because it's not just the oil change. They do, transmission fluid flushes, they do engine flushes, they do all sorts of extra additional higher gross profit work. What I find interesting, though, regardless if it's a quick lube or a repair shop, there's an oil change sticker that goes in your car that tells you two things: what the mileage is when you should come back, and the approximate date. And I've always thought, why can't we take that one step further and actually tell them when they should be coming back in? Now, for years, we've suggested that you tell the customer, not ask, but tell the customer when they're coming back. And I believe that's accurate. It sounds like it's too forward, too bold, telling them. But here's the problem. If you ask, if I say, well, how would you like to come back on March the 8th? Well, I don't know where I'm going to be on March 8th. I'd have to check that out. Well, I suggest you look right at them and say, I know where you're going to be on March 8th, Kevin. You're going to be standing right here giving me some money. Okay, so I'm kidding. But we should simply say, we have made the appointment for you on a specific day. Now, that system works, and I know lots of people who've done it for years and years and years. But one of my favorite shops, his name is Rex. He is in Toronto, Ontario, and he made a very simple change. I've talked to you about it, Phil. He made a really simple change. Instead of telling the customer your appointment is on May 2, again, you want to look at a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he decided that it would be less of a forwardness, or whatever you want to call it, be more subtle maybe, to say your next appointment is going to be the week of March 2 to 9. And what we're going to do is we're going to call you the week before. And what they do at their shop is they have a business card size card that is stapled to 100% of the invoices. And it simply says your next appointment is the week of. And nobody says no. It's not like I need to look and say, well, that Tuesday morning I'm going to be someplace else. All we need to do is a very subtle approach. The fact that it's in writing, you're just pointing to the card. I find a lot of people are so afraid to tell them about their next appointment. Well, it's a car. They need to come back in anyway. And so we simply say, your appointment is the week of, and the card says it right there. So you give them the invoice, you do everything you're doing right now. All you've done is taken a card with your company name logo on it and says your next appointment is. What kind of things can we pre-book? And I know a lot of people think oil changes, just oil changes, just oil changes. We don't know when that's going to be. And by the way, I wrote an article, and I'm going to send it along with this in case some of you don't have it. I know most of you do, but it was talking about the commuter's oil change. And somebody who commutes a lot should not base their oil changes on mileage alone. They should base it on engine hours. And I did some research, and the average vehicle that sits for 1 hour of idle time is equal to 25 miles or 40 kilometers. So we need to explain to our customers it's not just about mileage, it's about hours as well. So in some cities, and you can find out, go online and Google it to find out what the average is. In LA in the US is the highest. In Canada, it's Vancouver, 87 hours of idle time. And it doesn't mean 87 hours of commuting time. That's just commuting time. Idle time is defined as time where the engine's running, but the car wheels are not turning, or I think they say less than 1 mile an hour, or 5 miles an hour, something like that. Still considered idle when you're pulling up because you've got now 3 feet in front of you. So if your customers are commuting a lot, we need to educate them that they shouldn't look at just mileage. The average person who commutes in a big city actually needs one more oil change a year. So we need to think in terms of our customer and simply asking them, how much time do you spend commuting? Did you know that in this city, the average consumer sits idling for 87 hours? That's insane. That means that should be one more oil change a year. And having said that, when you think about it, West Service Center, you work on a lot of big trucks. Those are in hours, not engine hours. Boats are in engine hours. Planes are in engine hours. So on the oil change sticker, instead of saying when you should be back, we should actually make the appointment for that. So you'll notice on your oil change sticker that you should be in approximately March the 2nd. So what we've done is we've made an appointment for you for that week. And again, if they commute much, it wouldn't say March 2nd. You'd probably make it for an earlier time. But it's not just oil changes. You can pre-book somebody for a factory recommended service. I see that you have 94,000 kilometers on your vehicle, or you've got 57,000 miles, and the manufacturer recommends a major service at 60,000 miles or 96,000 K. And this is what's included in that service. This is why you should want to do it. If you've not listened to our Service Advisor Selling Skills class, I encourage you to do that. We talk about how to sell much more maintenance. So you explain the benefits to the customer, how much it's going to be. So you should be, based on how much you drive, you should be due for that service on approximately April the 2nd. So what we've done is we've made an appointment for you that week, and we will call you the week before to confirm that appointment. If you can make it, great. If you have to change it, that's fine. But now the customer's leaving knowing that there's a business card size card attached to the work order that says the next appointment is, and you could write right on there 60,000 K service or 96,000 kilometer service. Or it can be for a tire rotation. It could be for any kind of maintenance. When we pull up, when you were sold All Data or Mitchell On Demand, they probably sold you that based on the fact that you can make back the money by selling more maintenance. So what we should be doing, at least the day before the customer comes in, is pulling up their mileage and printing off for them what the next service is. And too often we think of 30s, 60s, and 90s. But every 3,000 miles or 5,000 kilometers or less if they drive more, there are services that repeat themselves over the life of the vehicle. I've had some people say, well, it's easier for Toyota because that's all they work on is Toyotas and they have their own system. It doesn't matter what kind of vehicle your customer has. It's going to need to be maintained. And it's basically the same services that repeat themselves over the life of the vehicle. So in every single instance, you can look at the mileage today, take a look at the next service. Maybe it's 3,000 miles out. It could be 5,000 kilometers, and say the manufacturer recommends these services. We've made an appointment for you to come back the week of April 1st to the 7th, and we'll call you the week before. You want the customer leaving knowing when they're coming back. And I want to encourage you, starting today or tomorrow, whatever it is you're listening to this class for the pre-recorded portion, is never say to a customer, we'll see you next time. So many shops say, see you next time. And of course, we're painful, almost like the dentist. And they say, well, hopefully not anytime soon. They don't want to see us. But instead of saying, we'll see you the next time, we should let them know when the next time is going to be. And you can pre-book almost any type of work, maintenance that is. Hopefully we can maintain the vehicle so that the person won't have something break down. We can take care of the timing belt. The timing belt is a good example of that. The manufacturer recommends that your timing belt is replaced at X number of thousands of miles or kilometers. You're really close to that. You should be due for that in about 2 months' time. Here's why you want to have it done. It's cheaper to change the belt than change your engine. So we've made an appointment for you the week of June 1st till the 7th, and we're going to contact you the week before to confirm which day of that week is best for you. Again, focusing usually on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. You can become brilliant at pre-booking appointments. I talked to Jim this morning again. He's a guy that sent me an email in November that he already had 44 pre-booked appointments for February. When I talked to him today, he said, that's all? I said, yeah, Jim, it was when you first started. And the reason it was important to him is because he always hated February. Well, Jim hasn't hated February in well over 10 years. February is just as good as a month as any other time. But when do you take care of February? When you're getting down to February and the schedule's too low, it's too late. You take care of February in November, December, and January. And you should be able to look forward a month, 2 months, 3 months. Now, you don't want to oversell the time. You don't want to be completely sold out. So if I'm making the appointment in advance, I want to make sure that that week or whatever I'm going to have enough time available. If you're looking 3 months out, you probably will have enough time. But you can get to a point like Jim Voigt, who's gone from 0 pre-booked appointments for February or whatever to 44. And as of today, I talked to him. He said on average, he has 700 pre-booked appointments. If you go to his shop and get your winter tires put on, they make the appointment to have those winter tires taken off. If you're having your summer tires put on, then they already make the appointment to have those swapped out. So when you leave, you know when you're coming back. And that's brilliant because when we're booking for winter tires to be put on, it's a little easier. It's a little bit more predictable than when spring's going to be around. But you have the ability to, say, let's make the appointment for you the first week in October. You can avoid the rush in November. We'd love to see you a little bit earlier. It's better for you. It's better for us. So we've made the appointment for the first week in October to have your winters put on, and we're going to call you the week before. So back to this, just to recap, I'm going to encourage you not to sell all of your time. If you've got 24 hours, it's crazy to sell all 24. Again, maybe you could track it just maybe for a week. Just have a little sheet beside you that each time a customer comes in and wants more work done, then you just put a little tick there. So maybe at the end of next week, you can say, wow, 30% of our customers wanted more work done. 40% of our customers wanted more work done, or whatever it might be. So you can fine tune this for your own shop. But the question is, how many hours of inventory do you have? How much reserve time do you feel comfortable with? And track it for a week and find out, did I run out of day or did I run out of cars, and adjust your reserve time accordingly. The idea isn't bring it in, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. That's way too stressful for the technicians, way too stressful for the customers, way too stressful for management. We make way too many mistakes. We get it in, get it out, get it in, get it out, get it in, get it out. We don't have time for the quality control inspections. I believe that if you can control your schedule, you can reduce your sanity or insanity and have a lot more of a sane schedule. So with that, thank you very much. If you've got questions, Kelly at kellythecoach.com. I'm going to send you this spreadsheet. It'll be a working spreadsheet, so you can start to use it at least to get the concept down. And again, I'm going to send you the information on the company that put together an electronic version of this. But again, it doesn't matter if you're using what shop management system. You can do this in Excel. You can do it on paper. The concept is simple. Don't overbook your day. Don't underbook your day. And never have a customer leaving your shop without knowing when they're coming back in. Again, my email address, Kelly at kellythecoach.com, Kelly at kellythecoach.com. This session was recorded and we'll be sending it out to you. With that, thank you very much for your time and your attendance, and we'll talk to you again. Thanks.